Welcome to Laugh, Cry, or Die, a comedy podcast by two human trash bags of disappointed possibilities that could have been amazing, but instead are now here making this show for
failing at life.
Failing at life. My name is Steve Wilbury. I am a pain-riddled, surgery-prone rack of ick. And with me is my co-host, Naomi Strain, who is a professional seizurist.
I do it very well.
She's so good. I mean, she won the Seizure Cup 7 years in a row.
But I couldn't hold it. I kept dropping it.
Yeah. Luckily, it's made out of plastic for just this reason. The first one was made of glass, and then they went, oh, bollocks.
Bad idea. It's like my medical alert alarm thing that I wear. That it normally when people use them, they press the button, and if they press it accidentally, they shake it to turn it off. It kind of defeats the point with me.
No, yeah, you can't
shake it to turn it off. And so I have a special one that goes off if I hit the deck, like it's motion activated. They've just changed the settings and it turns it off again. So it sets it off when I fall, and then I successfully turn it off by shaking around.
That seems not great. What if you keep it on when you're having sex?
I did worry about that, but luckily I don't have sex. That helps. It does go off. If you play hopscotch with a child, it scares the shit out of them, so that's fun.
Right, but
no sex.
But no sex. No sex.
That's not the reason I don't. Frowned upon.
Mostly. Mostly. As you may tell, the podcast is a little bit black because we deal with profoundly shit things that most people are lucky enough to not have to experience, but we decided to detail them in this podcast for you because, hey, what's better than thinking, God, at least I'm not that poor fuck.
Yeah, we can be that person that they're, at least it's not them. Could be worse.
I was actually listening to another podcast called Behind the Bastards about Coco Chanel today, who is a famous Nazi lover. And fuck me, her start of her life was terrible. And it was nice to be, at least I'm not that poor fucker.
Was it worse than ours?
Oh, I mean, she didn't have an ongoing disability, but she was born in a poorhouse, and her father was a traveling junk salesman, and she had to make up lies about how many times he visited to convince herself that he loved her.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. And then there was one quote that was like, I found out that you can die multiple times within a life. I've known it since I was 12, when her mother died in a freezing cold apartment, and then she was left alone for hours with her mother's corpse until adults came and take her away.
Well, that's uplifting.
Isn't it? So we're like that, but hospital, where Naomi didn't get to record last week because she was very busy doing an exciting adventure.
Yeah, it was very exciting that I was very much looking forward to. So I went into hospital for a 72-hour fast. And the reason for that, and like the
3 days, 3 days for our math impaired listeners.
Well, they say 3 days. I was in 5 altogether because I love it there. No, the reason they wanted to do it was because after a seizure at one time, my blood sugars dropped really low, which isn't good. And they wanted to find out what would happen if they starved me, basically to see if it was contributing towards my seizures.
All right.
It's kind of ticking a box because that would have been found out way before now. But anyway, so the plan was go in, don't eat for 72 hours. They'd check my blood regularly. And then after 72 hours, I'd have a sandwich and go home. That was kind of how it was sold to me. And so I had all these plans of like, okay, 72 hours, I'll, take some stuff with me to entertain myself. So I had my scripts to work on. I had my music, I had books and all this. After the first 24 hours, I lost my shit. Like, I went mental. It started off being just kind of sat in a corner on a bed waiting to be taken to the ward. And so by the time the fast started, I hadn't eaten for 4 hours already, but that didn't count. So I was taken up to the medical ward, put into my room. Oh, the first night, actually, I was put into a ward of 4, and it was brilliant. The lady in the bed opposite was elderly and had obviously lost her mind. And so she was getting super agitated and was trying to get out of the ward, and everyone was against her. And it was like quite entertaining to watch. But the nurse and the orderly that were with her were kind of trying to do other jobs as well. But she kept getting up and trying to get around with the walker. So I said, I'll sit with her. So I went over and chatted with her, and I just went along with her delusion. It was brilliant. She thought she'd tried to get on the train at Christchurch, and her brother-in-law and sister-in-law had left her on the platform and ran away. But luckily she had her handbag, which was an empty box of tissues with an orange in it. It kept her happy. And she was hating on her brother and sister-in-law for doing this awful thing. But I managed to convince her. I know, bastards. I managed to convince her that the orderly sitting at the door was the receptionist waiting for a phone call from them to come and get her in the morning. And she was concerned at like, how much is this place costing? And I said, brilliant, it's free and you get breakfast in the morning. And she was like, oh, that's good. That's good. So that entertained me for a while. And then I was taken to my room. Oh, lovely. The next morning I set up my laptop.
So you had a private room?
They gave me a private room. Yeah, it took me away from the crazy. Well, I think I'd probably be quite disruptive if she's already agitated and then there's me spazzing out. It wouldn't really help. But the devil's in here. So
you think you're locked in here? You think I'm locked in here with you, but really you're all with me.
Shut the doors. So yeah, they took me to my own room, but I have to then be on, whenever I'm in hospital, I'm 24/7 watch in case I spaz out. So doors open, somebody's sitting in the door watching me.
So is there no, I guess your alarm doesn't work in the hospital?
No, my alarm's only within Wi-Fi of my house. My house.
So there's literally someone whose entire job is just to like stare at you and make sure you're not having a seizure.
Yeah.
Do they have a crossword?
Well, yeah, it was a few of them. They sort of rotated through, and they were sat between two doors, so they're watching whoever was dying in the room next to me and me.
Right.
Basically, it's a dying person, because they have to occasionally go in and suction them so they can breathe, and you can hear a person actively dying, which is, an interesting experience. But yes, they sit there and watch, but pretty much means they watch stuff on their phone and read and glance up every now and again, or if they hear you making a noise. Right. And so it's just sort of eyes on. And they did catch me, I think she said 3 times, having sneaky seizures. I'm so sly. But never get away with it.
Trying to duck your head out for a fag, and you're like, oh, I'm not just sneaking a seizure while I'm here.
I'm going a bit shaky. So the next day was good. I set my laptop up and I was working away, and then I was like, shit, I'm hungry. And then got real sleepy. And
did you get fluids as well?
I was allowed water and black coffee.
Right. So, but you weren't on like IV fluids or anything.
No.
When I've been on fasts, I've been on IV fluids, and that kind of just stopped me being hungry because I was fully hydrated.
Oh, see, I was trying to drink so much water, but then I needed to go to the loo. Like, I think one count was 8 times in an hour.
That is a lot of piss.
Quite a lot of weeing.
Normally you just talk shit rather than piss, but...
Oh, no. Well, see, this thing couldn't shit. That was probably the worst. I got, severely, there was nothing for my body to work on, and so my intestines and guts just locked up, and it was like being stabbed constantly in the guts. And I like to think I keep my shit together. I like to keep myself together, and be very, calm and sensible. Man, I lost it. I was in so much pain, just crying, and then being hungry on top. My life sucks.
So you were hangry with intense stabbing abdominal pains.
Yeah. And I was a really such a drama queen. Looking back on it, looks like a drama queen, but I was trying really hard, and I failed miserably to be a normal person.
Okay, so you were in your room, you were working on the next day, you're having cramp, you were very hungry.
Yeah, and so then I got very sleepy, and just slept lots on and off, and was starting to get quite sad and a bit confused, and I still had to take my medication. And my medication works best on a fed stomach. It doesn't work well on an empty stomach. And so I started to feel very drugged. Like the bed was moving and I couldn't walk properly. I was very wobbly. And I didn't know if that was to do with the lack of food. I didn't think lack of food would get that bad. And so it took me a little while to sort of realise, not until actually I got home and went, shit, yeah, that would have added to it. But it was hour 40 was when my spirit broke.
No.
Excuse me. I was trying to sleep. Hang on. To get away from the pain and the misery. And I'm so sorry for myself.
Sorry, just a quick question with the sleep thing. So, like, when I'm having really bad stomach pain, I have horrible nightmares because, like, the stomach pain like bleeds through into my sleep, and I have these really horrible unsettled. So, did you have any of that, or was it just?
No, mine was still, I think, more connected to my drugs because I kept waking up thinking there was somebody walking around my room, and there wasn't. Yeah, and that's happened in hospital before when I was overdosed by them, not by me. That I've thought somebody's in my room. So I think I get very paranoid when I'm drugged.
Is it kind of like a sleep paralysis almost? But I guess you could move, hey?
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're trying to sleep.
Yeah, and so that I woke up and I was trying to force myself back to sleep because I felt so shit. And hour 40 was my tipping point. And I literally sat up in bed and went, this is fucking ridiculous. You shouldn't be allowed to do this to a human. This is nonsense. This has to stop right now. And I have to have a sandwich and go home. Like full on temper tantrum.
Was this at 1 a.m. or what time in the day was this?
This is about 11 o'clock in the morning. So it was just normal daytime. Yeah.
So you could have theoretically fucked off.
Yeah. And I was going to. And they were like, well, hang on, let's just get the doctor and we'll have a chat. And it's like, well, I'll get the doctor, but I'm going home. It was like, this is torture for a human. And I know that people do these sort of fasts for health reasons. They might do a 40-hour fast or whatever. And, you know, and it's like, why can they do it? And I'm losing it so much.
Well, you're on pills.
Yeah. So doctor turns up and he's like, oh, you know, with this far in, don't want to give up at this point. And my blood sugars were dropping at this point, which
makes because you hadn't eaten for 40 fucking hours.
I know. So like the good level, like normally I'm about a 5 for what that counts. I think between 4 and 8 is the ideal. And mine at this point would drop into like they went down to 2.8, which that's not good. But they were dropping, but steadily, but not fast. Like it was like, oh yeah, this is expected. It wasn't like I was suddenly plummeting. So they got the doctor in to talk to me then, and he was like, oh, this close, and you know, stick with it. And I was just adamant, no, this is bullshit. And I said to him, can you lie to me? He's like, why? I said, if you tell me that it's, you know, another 30 plus hours, I'm going to freak out because this is going to get worse. So tell me in a couple of hours, we're going to, you know, come and have a look at it again. We're going to come and check in a couple of hours. Yeah. And he said, if I lie to you, now you've told me, that's not going to work. I said, trust me, it will work. And so he said, okay, I'll come back in a couple of hours. I'm like, sweet, that's fine. Because I respond really well to being lied to. Like, even if I know it's a lie. It's like they had to, as part of it, because I had to have bloods taken all the time, rather than putting a IV line in or whatever all the time and it caused an issue, they put what's called a PICC line in, PICC, which I can't remember what it's called, but it basically goes in your arm just above your elbow crease, goes into a vein there and goes all the way up your arm, around your shoulder and down to a vein at the top of your heart. I'm not very medical, but it goes all the way along, and it means that they can pop in and out and take bloods whenever they want. And when they put that in, I was kind of freaked because they said, oh, we're going to put this line in. So obviously I went straight onto Google and went, oh, what's this line? Looked at the picture and went, oh, fuck. I wish I hadn't looked at that because it looks quite scary.
Never look at the pictures of your shit.
I know, right?
So when I had my neck surgery, I was Googling it, and the picture is of the neck sliced open and then your esophagus just to the right of your neck so they can get to your spine.
Right.
And
so they go in through the front.
They go in through the front and then just like yank your windpipe over. And I was just like,
you don't want to know that.
No. So you Googled a PICC line, not a fact.
Yeah. So they took me in to have that done, and I was freaking like, this is going to be massive, massive incident. And they said, oh no, we do it under ultrasound so we can follow it in. And so I'm lying there, and the doctors and the nurse in there, they're all, young and chatting about, weekends and birthdays and all that. And it was great. It was taking my mind off it. And then one of them chattering away, and she said, oh, it's my birthday today. And so my mind's really not with it. I really can't concentrate today. And I said, hang on. Like, please don't say that your mind's not with it and you can't concentrate when you're about to put a line into my heart. Like, just have other conversations to distract me, not that one.
Also, I think someone who's on a fast, it's my birthday, my immediate brain would have been like, where's the cake? Where is your cake? Where is your birthday cake? I want it.
Well, see, at that point, I was still quite sane, so I was probably only 6 hours into my fast, only 2 hours into the official.
If I hadn't eaten for 23 minutes, I'd be like, where's your birthday cake?
Yeah, if it was just mentioned, I can smell toast, or
if there is one thing I know about nurses, is that there is always fucking home baking lurking around the break room somewhere, because someone's sick nan got taken care of, so someone brought in some cakes, and there's always shit in that break room.
True. Maybe I should have wandered off. Though, on a separate note, one night when I was trying to entertain myself and take my mind off it, I did laps walking around the ward, and this was quite late at night, and there was a trolley with all the spare dinners, like everyone's trays and their dinners. And as I walked past, I saw a pea. Just where one of the lids was a bit off. It was like, it's a fucking pea. And I thought, imagine if I ruined the whole thing for the sake of one pea.
I would have had so much respect for you.
I had a lot of pride in myself for doing that. The thing is, if I'd gone over and had that one pea, I may have got a little bit of gravy on it, and then I would have had to lift the lid, and I'd have probably seen a bit of potato, and I'd have been in there.
Then you'd be
done. There'd been no stopping me. That would have been it.
Would you eat a floor pea?
Oh yeah, I'd eat. In normal life, I'd eat anything off the floor.
Yeah, but that's because your floor is sparkling and is basically a clean lab surface.
It has the appearance of clean, but if you kind of came around my house and actually swabbed and tested, it's probably filthier than most people's. I'm all about the surface. As long as it looks all right.
Anyway, so
I was having this line. I was having the line put in. And so she put numbing stuff on, and she got the line that she was going to put in. She got it out and went, and I was like, what, is that it? And she showed me, and it's 35 centimeters long. Fuck. And she said, we'll trim it to fit, but it's 35 centimeters. And I said, no, can you lie and tell me it's 2 or 3 centimeters? And she kind of looked at me and went, it's 2 or 3 centimeters. I was like, sweet, fine, put it in. And she did, and it was fine. And it was honestly no big deal. You feel a bit where it goes in, and then you feel just like a little bit of pushing, but only just up your arm. You don't feel it any further.
Yeah.
Because there's no nerves, apparently. So it was fine.
Your body's not designed to suss out if there's stuff inside your blood vessels. It just kind of assumes that there's nothing.
Things are probably fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just an example of how well I respond to lies.
To lies. Okay, so the man lied to you at hour 40, said it'll be a few more hours and I'll come back and check on you. And then what happened?
Yeah, so they were coming in every 3 hours to take finger pricks of blood to see how that's going, and I think they were taking blood out every 6 hours. But what happened was, as I was getting more and more damaged inside from not eating, my nerves became really hypersensitive. So whenever they did the finger prick test, it hurt loads because my body was just so on edge, and you'll possibly understand that with your peripheral
the wind up kind of stuff. Everything's just loud, just like sights, noises, like it's all just kind of makes you flinch.
Well, I'm glad you said with the sights and sound, because I took a sleep mask with me, and I wore that a lot because everything was bright, even when there was no lights on, like the doorway and like a little sliver of light was just everything was painful. So the finger prick tests were painful, and that was making me sad every time she came in. And that just reminds me of that other time, because they were taking it all the time. The previous time when I've been in hospital, my blood sugar dropped. They were having to come in every hour and test my fingers. And so each time they were taking it from a different finger. And one night they came in and I was very sleepy, and they were about to do the test. And I wanted to make a joke about, there's so many holes in my fingers. And I got my words wrong. and said, "Oh, so many fingers in my holes." And I knew I'd said it wrong. And I was so tired, I didn't bother correcting it. It was like, they can probably, here's some words, make a sentence out of it. But I thought, of all the things to transpose, it's going to have to be that, isn't it? So, but yeah, so they would come in every 3 hours and take those, and they were really hurting. And so it got to the point when they were taking the bloods out of the PICC line, I could feel it vibrating up my arm. It was like there was bees up there, and they said it was sitting on a nerve or something, and they could take it out and put a new one in, but it'd be a shame to do that because they were like, "Oh, we've only got 6 more bloods to take," and it was like that buzzing was then starting to really hurt. So I had to hold my arm while they were doing it to stop it buzzing and stop it hurting, and that was making me cry. And so on the last 2 or 3 bloods, they said, "All right, we're going to take it out of your arm."
Right.
And she tried to get a line in. Now my I can't remember the name of the vein. I think it's ACF they call it, but it's the main big chunky one in your elbow crease. And mine are scarred to fuck from the paramedics having to use them so often. And so if I can avoid it,
right.
Pardon me?
I just called you a junkie.
Well, see, that's the thing. If they did tell me that if I was a junkie, I should. At hospital this time, they told me to use different veins if I was to be a junkie, which is helpful.
That's nice
So,
of them.
Yeah, no, it's good advice, But because they're so scarred, I try not to use them. And they said, "Oh, we're going to have to because we need to get some." And they tried to put one in one arm, and I was damn near screaming. It was so painful, and I think possibly dehydrated. Even though I tried to drink a lot of water, I'm not too good at it. But I think because my nerves were on edge, I was dehydrated. I was, obviously hungry and sensitive to things. That was making me cry out. And I was like, "You have to take that out. That is so painful." So they went to the other arm, the one that had the PICC line in, but tried to take it from the vein out of that one. And I was screaming again on that. They managed to get, because what was happening with the PICC line when they were trying to get the blood out, I'm bouncing around because I got all excited with these tangents. When they were trying to take blood out of the PICC line, when that was vibrating and hurting, what was also happening is they were pulling on the syringe, trying to get blood out, and nothing was coming out. So they were like pumping it, really pulling, trying to get blood out. And they would get a little bit, but it was like nothing was coming out of my body to give them blood, which was kind of, I know it's weird when they're pumping and yanking on this thing, trying to pull blood out of you. So anyway, they went into that arm to try and get blood out of that. And that was super painful. And they said, "You're just going to have to suck it up. We have to get the blood out." So at that point, I had the PICC line, the 2 in my arms, and I was just lying there crying in pain and having to put up with it while they took blood out of me, which was making me sad as well. This whole time, I had a craving for a ham sandwich. And I don't know why. And it was cheap white bread, cheap ham, just that.
Well, that's like the standard hospital fare, isn't it? That's like the thing that you get is like a millimeter thin slice of ham.
Yeah, maybe that was in my head. But the nurse said the cheap white bread would have been because my body was craving instant sugars, and that was a nice, easy way to get it. So every time they came in, I was like, as soon as this fast ends, and it was supposed to end at 4 p.m. on the last day, I'm like, as soon as this ends, will there be a sandwich for me to have immediately? And I became obsessed with this sandwich, and everybody in the hospital knew that this sandwich had to happen. So as the time got on towards the end of the fast, I was getting very demanding that as soon as I hit 4 p.m., I need a sandwich. That's just end of story. Need my sandwich. And so it was no big secret that this was going to happen. My family knew. I think Facebook knew. It was, the world needed to know the importance of this. So as we were getting closer and closer to 4 p.m., sweet, I can do this another half an hour, another 10 minutes. And it hit 4 o'clock. And those bastards, they had picked up on how well I respond to lying, and they lied to me.
Motherfuckers.
I know, right? It's one thing me telling them to lie, but another when they do it off their own backs, cheap little bastards. And so it got to, I don't know, 5 to 4, and I'm getting all excited for Christmas. And they came in and said, "What we didn't tell you is we need to take bloods at 10 minutes past and 20 minutes past and 30 minutes past and reevaluate those. And then we can decide what we do from there." But you little fuckers. So it's like, okay. So they came in 10 minutes later, did that, came in 20, came in 30. I'm like, okay, leave it with us. And I'm sitting there waiting. It got to 5 o'clock. And they said, okay, now we can get you something to eat. And it's like, why isn't it here already? Why did you not walk in with the sandwich? And so, like, leave it with us. We'll go and get one. And she ordered, and she came back in and said, oh, you can have tuna, or you can have cheese, and they're both going to be horrid, but you can have it. And I was like, cheese, that's the most basic. She's like, no worries. So she went off to order that, and it got to 5:30. I'm like, this is bullshit. And she came in and said, oh, is it not here yet? And I said, no. And so she goes off again to find it. And it got to 6:30, and I still had no food. And one of the nurses came in and said, this is crazy. And she ran away and came back with a ham sandwich. And she said that she knew that ED sometimes have sandwiches. And so she'd ran and got one out of their fridge and ran it back to me. And so forever in my head now, the emergency department isn't for injuries, it's for sandwiches. The emergency sandwich department. And I was so excited to have this sandwich. And I thought, I'm just going to enjoy it. And I ate it and immediately threw up.
Oh,
it was like, damn it. So then they gave me an orange juice that was lurking. And that was the strongest thing I've ever tasted. It was like sucking a mouthful of Baroccas. It was like, it was so tangy, awesome, but had that and then threw up. And then somebody else turned up with a sandwich, had that and threw up. And I didn't mind throwing up because at least I was having tastes and sandwiches. It's like, keep bringing me the sandwiches. This is
both
fine.
ways as well.
Yeah. Well, it stopped me feeling hungry for about 5 minutes before I threw it up.
So how come you were in for 5 days instead of 3?
Well, because of my drugs, which now I realize it was drugs, I was very, very wobbly and couldn't safely walk on my own. So the fast started at 4 p.m. on the Monday, and then 72 hours takes that through to the Thursday. So ideally I would have been out on Thursday afternoon. That was kind of the plan. Come in, midday on the Monday, be out by Thursday afternoon. But because I was still so wobbly and needed, someone to lean on when I went to the bathroom,
you couldn't eat without puking.
Yeah. Well, even at that point, once I managed to eat something, she went and scouted and found an old meal that was sitting on the ward, and she's like, I'll go and heat it up for you. I'm like, I don't give a fuck if it's warm or not. I want that cold cabbage and lumpy mashed potato. And it was actually really nice, and I kept that down. I really enjoyed that. But I was still so drugged and wobbly and feeling unwell. And this is how sad my life is. They said, okay, well, we can send you home. Who's at home? And I said, there's no one at home. It's just me and the cat. And they went, oh, okay. Was there someone that could come and stay with you? And I said, no, there's not. And they said, well, what about family? No, they're not in New Zealand. And they kind of laughed and said, well, surely there's someone that can stay. And I said, why don't you take your pick from one of the visitors that I've had over the last 5 days? And they kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, okay. There has been no one. And I was fine with that. I don't need visitors. But it kind of showed them how solo life is. And I have friends. I'm not a hermit, but a lot of superficial or distance friends,
Well, I think also, like, I would like this, I think is a good thing kind of for some of our listeners as well, is that thing of like, I would have come to stay, Rachel would have come to stay. I'm pretty sure there are a number of people who would have done it, but because we are convinced of our own narrative regarding our disabilities, and also that fear of asking for help, because when you need help so often, the idea of saying, hey, I need a thing is like I have to be so fucked before I ask Rachel to actually do anything.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think the hospital kind of realized this well, because normally I try and get out of hospital as soon as I can. And they gave me the option of going home, and I chose to stay, which I think shows them how shit I was feeling, because I needed to be looked after. But
I'm incapable of myself.
That's so pathetic. But yeah, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that. That yes, the help would probably have been there had I asked for it from people. But I think then, and there's almost that, I don't know whether it's the right word, but that fear of, say, if I'd asked you,
Mm.
then it puts you in a position that if you can't, then you would have to say no. And then you would be in a situation where you'd potentially feel shit that you couldn't help. I would then feel shit that I reached out for help and it wasn't available. And so there's so much more sort of internal politics
Very
that goes
much.
along with it. And I think, yeah, you're right. To most people, it'd just be, oh, I need help. I need a lift. I need someone to hang out. And it would be perhaps easier to ask for that. Whereas when you're doing it or have the, reasons to do it all the time, it's more, I don't know, it's so much more personal. And I suppose it's like the paramedics say about like old people, that you can get a young person who has a little injury and is like, oh my God, it's the worst thing I've ever experienced. I need everybody's help. Whereas you get an old person that's fallen down and ripped their leg off. And they're like, oh, well, if you can just help me into the chair, I'll be fine.
Just don't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah. And so I think the more things that you have go wrong, the less likely you are to ask for help.
I would agree, because there's also, you're used to getting through these situations on your own, And
yeah, you kind of learn your not your capabilities, but you learn what you can bear.
Yeah. And I think for like young people or people who haven't been through the ringer, as it were, then their expectations of what they can bear is quite low. But once
they haven't got that frame of reference, I suppose.
Yeah.
So like, is this the worst thing or is this just a bad thing?
Yeah, it's like, I've nearly died. So my toe getting broken.
Yeah.
Like I had I forget how I did it. I think I dropped a bit of plywood on my foot or something, and my toe looked like Grimace, like the purple guy from McDonald's. Like it just like this swollen mass of yellow and purple mottled flesh. And it was obviously like a profoundly broken big toe.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's fine. I didn't do anything with your toes.
I had a similar thing with a broken toe not long back. So I was in my armchair and I thought I saw a cockroach beside me, and I leaped out of my chair, did that sort of shivery dance that you do involuntarily, and kicked the sofa and broke my toe. There was no cockroach, but I was like, oh, I think that's broken, and I left it and then thought, probably should do something about this, and went to the medical injury centre. Because, quick note, people, not every injury is for ED. Some of them can just go to the injury centre. It's not an emergency. So broken toe is painful and possibly needs to just be checked out. Doesn't need to be ED. So a lot of people take up space for no reasons. Well, not as important reasons. And so they looked at it and went, yes, you've broken your toe, and found it highly amusing that I thought I'd seen an invisible cockroach. And so they said, they gave me this really sexy Frankenstein sandal to wear. And the thing was, the next day, it was wearing a stupid, clunky sandal and was trying to vacuum. And the sandal caught on the vacuum cleaner. I tripped with the other foot, kicked the sofa, and fucked the other exact toe, the same toe on the other side. And it's just, there's absolutely no way I'm going back to have this one looked at, because how are they going to believe you? You're going to go, that toe I broke yesterday, got a matching one on the other side. So I just taped that up the same as the first one. Well, and then they were sore, but they were fine. And then I went on a big walk, a big high walk, and I think it took me like 5 or 6 hours. And you'll know it's from the Glen over to Cable Bay and back again.
Oh yeah,
a big old hard walk. And it was the week after that I had to go back in for the checkup. And they said, no, it's still broken. Like, it still needs to be looked after for another 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm like, it's a toe. Like, it's a middle toe. It's not even an important toe, like a big toe. Yeah. But a middle toe, it's like, it's no biggie. So that's what you're saying about that frame of reference is we've needed big stuff dealt with. And so, yeah, toe, it's like, yeah, it hurts, but
the thing is, that doesn't mean that it doesn't, like, just because you've had a big thing happen, it doesn't mean the smaller things aren't still important.
100%, especially for people who haven't had a thing like happen before. Like when I broke my leg years back, a friend of mine came in and said, I know you're dealing with that, but I fell and my finger really hurts. And my pain didn't negate their pain.
Yeah, very
if
much.
I said, but look how painful my leg is, it doesn't help their finger feel any better.
Well, I think like with there's this funny thing about like when you have a big thing, and then at first when people start complaining about their little things, you're like, oh, just shut the fuck up. I think when you get some perspective, having had the big thing, you know how bad their little thing is, because you have had so much pain and so much suffering, and then you're like, oh god, that must really hurt. And so it does, it can help you to kind of develop some compassion for people. But I think there is that phase when you first are dealing with big stuff, and then people talk to you about their like bullshit, and you're like,
and I suppose I still have moments of that, I think, because I never want to play injury trumps or spaz trumps or anything like that, but there are moments when you've had like a really big time, I've had like a really bad seizure and I'm feeling really down and life sucks and whatever I've broken hurts, and especially if everyone else has gone off to a big party or a big concert and I'm sitting at home feeling absolutely shit, and then someone says, oh, I feel really crap because I'm hungover, and then it can be like, you fuckers, like my life sucks. And so when you have those really down moments, then it can get you. And I think that's when other people need to practice their empathy and think, perhaps I won't read the situation and go, maybe now isn't the time.
Read the room a little bit.
Read the room, yeah. But generally, it's like,
I struggle a bit sometimes when people are complaining about work. And I'm like, I would murder to have a shit job.
Right,
that just provided me like a relatively stable amount of income that I could count on, that let me plan the rest of my life, that meant I didn't have to I did 2 shows. I did 2 Fringe shows last week, and with severe pouchitis. So that's where the microbiome inside my J pouch gets all fucked up and really fucks me up. Like a lot of pain, can't concentrate, shitting all the time. It like fucks me up. I pulled 2 shows from the inside of my asshole because I hadn't been able to prepare because I'd been sick all week.
Right.
And I was just so empty. And then on Saturday I went out and saw 2 shows, which were like loud, and I was just covered in pain flares. And but I made some money. But I would,
you have to like each week be thinking, where does the next money come from?
Yes, I would like, where is the money for the next bit? And I was trying to look at like some alternative education stuff for my neurodivergent kid, and it's like really expensive. And I'm like, well, maybe if I just stop eating, I could do that.
But, because it's hard to save for something when you can't go, okay, I can put this amount out of my wages away.
Yeah. Because it's like, well, I think I've got some, and grumble. So back to your story. So you ate your ham sandwich and you puked and you stayed in hospital for another couple of days till you came right.
Yeah. So I got home. It was actually Friday, so it's 5 days. So all in, the fast had lasted from when I last ate to when I finally was allowed the first sandwich was 80 hours. And I didn't realize how much that would mess me up, not just for the time that it would happen, but then for the following week. And I think it's because, like say, the drugs on an empty stomach and the it sounds, I don't know, a bit drama, but the trauma it felt like I'd gone through, and that my like emotional trauma as well. I found it so hard.
Well, when you're crying and they're yanking blood out of you and they're like, well, you just have to suck it up, which is, I've had a couple of things like that in medical stuff, and it's like it's traumatic. It's pain and suffering inflicted upon you that you have no choice but to just endure.
And see, part of me, I will never say no to any avenue that they offer to help with my seizures. So if they go to a psychologist, and I go, okay, and then the psychologist goes, yeah, your brain's sweet. But they say my brain's good because they say that my coping mechanisms are really good and probably better than most people's, and that's kind of because I've had to. because if I didn't have those coping mechanisms, I'd be dead by now, basically.
Well, this is laugh, cry, or die, isn't it? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So any avenue that they offer, I will take it, no matter. Yeah, if they said run down the main street naked in the middle of the day, I'd do it, partly for fun, but also if that helped.
So I've read a thing that says that that's good for seizures and for our social media.
Okay, next week then. Yeah,
Done.
it's a plan. We'll announce it time and date, and everyone come along. But so yeah, the where was I going with that?
We were talking about you'll do anything that they offer. They say this is the thing that might help.
Yeah, so having to accept this trauma that they're going to inflict, this pain they're going to inflict, because it is for the greater good. So you have to put up with it. And so when I got home, it felt like the physical and emotional trauma, no matter how tough I try and be, left me screwed. Like I was so tired. I was very emotional over very small things. And like at one point I was on a Zoom call with my sister, and she kind of talked me into being calm. Like my family have been really good with, looking after my brain. Despite other stuff going on in life, they've still been there to help me with this stuff. And so my sister kind of talked me down a bit, because I had to do the vacuuming, which I've got, a small place taking 5 minutes to vacuum. And I wanted to hang a hoodie up. And they were the two things I wanted to do. And I was so overloaded with thinking about those two things, because I couldn't cope with anything. And my sister's like, vacuuming can wait. Maybe let's aim to hang the hoodie up. That's a good thing. And I managed it, and everything was fine, and it didn't last, for ages. But that's how jangled my nerves were. And so I think this week that we've just last week, I was okay. I could do this week. It was stressful, and I think I've got 3 things to do today, and I managed to do 2 out of the 3. I think this coming week, I think I'm back to normal now. I think I'm all right now. But a 72-hour fast that some people would just go sweet, easy, it stole 2 weeks of my life.
I don't think anyone would not eat for 3 days and go, yeah, it's right.
Well, crazy fitness people will do a 48-hour fast.
Well, those people are idiots.
Mental, completely mental. I like fitness to an extent, but that is just mental. There's no reason for that.
But so that is the story of Naomi's week in hospital, not eating and being sad.
Great adventure.
What a fun podcast we have. It's just, I don't know why people wouldn't want to listen to this.
I know, right? At least even if it's just to feel better about their lives and go, thank God they're screwed. I'm not. Imagine being that person. Imagine just being a person that wakes up and goes, oh, morning, off to work. That's insane.
It blows my mind.
It really does.
That, like, I used to get really grumpy when I would see people jogging, and I'd be like, you fucking fit prick. I can barely, like, I'm much better than I was, but it was when I couldn't like walk around the supermarket and stuff, and I was really in a not great place physically, and I was like, you fucking fit prick, just running around for fun. Not, you don't even have to.
I just wish you'd have sat on a park bench or something and said that to people as they go past. You fucking fucker, showing off with your fucking legs.
You think you're cool, you joggy cat.
Ew, look at me jogging around a park.
This is you.
See, idiots, that's you, that is.
Yeah, face. Well, thank you very much for listening. Check us out. We're on the internets in various places, and we'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.
See you then. Bye.